In the Cartesian rule, it says, our fathers followed a light from the east. And it is interesting that the fairly new congregation of the Sisters of Bethlehem and also now the Brothers of Bethlehem have taken on a lot of the Eastern spirituality, and they look to St. Bruno as their father. Indeed, this one from the monastery they have in the Holy Land has on it not only the English but also the Arabic and the Hebrew. And they use a lot of Eastern style liturgy. We also at Selignac had quite a bit of influence from the East. When one holy monk came from the East to us one day, he commented that the incense was done as it was in the East. The full-length censer and so on, with great gusto. And the spirituality was that precisely of the lavra, the cells around a church. In the case of the saint of this day, Saint Charbel Makhlouf, we also find the best of the East present. He entered the monastery of St. Maron and was there, was ordained eventually, was able, after a good while, to obtain permission to become a hermit, for they had a hermitage on the mountain. And there, at that hermitage belonging to Ananaya Monastery, he suffered all the elements of nature without protection. His one consolation was the Blessed Sacrament. But he was already known to be a very holy man in the monastery itself. People would seek him out. He was very good to souls, and he was known also to obtain miracles through his intercession. And those miracles have never ceased. He was hardly dead when this oil came out of his body, which we still have and still use, and has done miracles ever since. And then we had also the strange case of these pilgrims coming one day and taking a picture of the hermitage and the group in front of it. And on the negative, the holy monk, now in glory, appearing as one of the group. And then in very recent times, a group going there to pray at the hermitage, and he appeared to them, and they immediately had the reaction to switch on their mobile phone to video this, and the phones froze. However, it turned out that the phones were recording his voice, and so on YouTube we can hear his voice from glory in the language that he had, and one can also have the translation, Eastern spirituality coming through at its best. Years ago, I used to frequent a hermitage belonging to an Eastern Orthodox monk who actually had been in the same school as my father, a good Welsh school by the sea, a boarding school, Tywyn. And they were the same age, and he had become an Eastern Orthodox monk and hermit. And I used to go and visit him and even stay with him. And I just found this the other day by chance. It's one of his cards to me, and it has on it Saint Charbel, who at the time, at least to me, wasn't so well known, but now is very much known and honoured. Although actually he was placed on the map already by Paul VI after the Second Vatican Council, for he wanted him honoured in East and West, being a sign for our times. The Maronites are under Rome but have their own right. This is written in Welsh, and Father Barnabas, Archimandrite Barnabas, was a good spiritual father to me, although he couldn't canonically be one, but he followed me through for years, and he was a good man of God. And I learnt a lot from being with him. One of his, as it were, disciples is Father Daniel, also well speaking, and he's in Blaenau-Festiniog. He is also a holy monk. The pull of the East was huge. I remember when I was 18 going with my parents to Greece, and at the time I was studying Greek, and it was also a help to that study. And we spent a little while in this place at the foot of Meteora. And on a Sunday morning I went up to one of the monasteries up the top, and I was deeply moved. These are places that were sought by the monks of old. At the time, I had thoughts of perhaps becoming a Cistercian, and the pull of the similar isolation of Cordy was there. For various reasons that didn't happen, but we see that in the West, islands and mountains, secluded places, were often the equivalent of the Eastern Desert. It works quite well. I remember hearing this, the present abbot of Les Reims, which is an old monastic community. The actual monastery goes back centuries and was already there at the time of St. Patrick and St. Cassian, who visited it. It's off the coast of France, near Cannes. Well, there, the abbot, he was studying, I believe, to become a doctor, and he was on retreat at that monastery, and he, at a certain point, felt something saying he had to enter that monastery, and years later he gave testimony, and this was the place, he said, where that had actually happened. It meant abandoning all the work he'd done in studying. And, of course, it was a success. But what he commented was this: the isolation provided by the sea is far more than the equivalent in land space. The sea is a huge protection. But then we have to be careful that despite all the outward protection, we don't let the world come in like a Trojan horse. For instance, internet, television, noisy guests. And that is always the threat in modern monastic life, especially in the West. There is a community of new canons regular, I believe, of the Cross, of the Holy Cross in America, which has constitutions for our time. And there's one part of it which says, at the very limit, the amount of time that one of the brethren may have on internet is 4 hours. That's interesting that one can be so much in communication with the world that one needs 4 hours. But it indicates the way that we are going. Life without anything but the bare communication with the world, including internet, is much simpler. And in the emptiness of solitude, what Saint Charbel heard can still be heard. Life isn't all that long, and the choice to have few words, but in contact with the Word, is a big one. We notice that the Lord knows that, and He honors monasteries that do that with vocations. There is no point in making a huge drive for vocations if we're not asking ourselves, in the first instance, is the place correct in the eyes of God with regard to this? Or will candidates who come in find more of the same thing? There's no point in leaving the world to find it twice over in the cloister. O Master, who has trod before this ancient pathway trod of yore, the silent feet of many more, thou still dost guide us, thou still dost guide us. And when the tears of many years, the secrets kept from mortal ears, On and again where thy word stares, thou still art listening, thou still art listening. For thou dost know this solitude, that held the unknown beatitude, beheld and held in quietude, and still dost ponder, and still dost ponder. For thou didst call and calling heard the distant echo of this word, call on and call till nothing stirred, in dying wonder, in dying wonder. Yet would at times a something move, where now thou art, where ancient love burns still and whisper from above, faint not we conquer, faint not we conquer.